Hi, Monica Miller here. This is Legal Tuesdays, where I answer your questions about separation of church and state. The question I will take today was from our online complaint form, a fellow named Tom Kaufman, who says, "Hi, I watch Monica's podcasts about legal issues regularly." Well, thank you. This message is not about a specific formal complaint, but it is a question that interests me profoundly. Given the large number of First Amendment violations that are documented by the AHA and the thousands that are obviously never unearthed, and given the routine success in the courts upholding secular rights, here's my question. Why don't let's just use public schools as a prop for this? Public school administrators, board members, teachers, etc. receive punishment for egregious violations. I love this question. Because I had the same one at a certain point in my career here. I've worked at AHA for about 10 years, especially if you include my internships that I did as a law student back in 2009, 2010. I've seen a lot of Establishment Clause violations. I've argued about 30 cases here, challenging separation of church and state violations. And I have to say one of the most egregious ones that came before my desk was last year. It was a school in Oklahoma that has a course called Missionaries. The long and the short of it is we sued them, not only seeking the traditional remedies that we seek in these cases, nominal damages and injunctive relief. We actually filed a case for punitive damages against the individual teachers and school officials in their personal capacities because what was going on was so egregious. They've had this mandatory class called Missionaries, and it's part of the same curriculum as all the other classes, held on school hours during the school day. And we're talking about children from pre-K up through 8th grade, so you've got like 4 and 5-year-olds in these classes, and missionary classes taught by local missionaries in the area. And by that I mean ministers. And these students were being taught about Jesus and not just, learning about Christianity. I'm talking like a church service at a public school on public school dollars and unbeknownst to the parents. And so an atheist family contacted us and said, our child has been forced to go to these classes, forced in the sense of any other class like math or science, class called Missionaries, and we just found out about it. They were like, some sort of calendar thing after she'd already attended like maybe 11 missionary classes. And so then they contacted the school and said, we don't want, our kid being subjected to this. Also, isn't it unconstitutional? And they proceeded to have more missionaries classes and proceeded to subject their child to those religious messages during school hours. So absolutely warranted to bring a case for punitive damages. The reason that there's not a lot of cases bringing punitive damages is because my guess is that lawyers, 10, 20 years when some of these cases were being decided, the relative time span of separation of church and state cases is really like from the 50s onwards, and most of the litigation kind of has happened from like the 80s up until now, and so sort of like increasing amount of cases. But the point being is that I imagine that the lawyers back 20 or 30 years ago, when they were starting to establish some of these cases, just didn't envision the kind of future that we have now, which is this, you kind of think you're establishing precedent and then the activity will stop or it won't get worse. Because once you have a Supreme Court case saying, for instance, in Lee versus Weissman, that you can't have a non-sectarian prayer, just a very generic prayer at a voluntary event such as a high school football game. You can't have that at one single prayer at a high school football game lasting 2 minutes by a student-led prayer. The Supreme Court in 2000 said that's unconstitutional. So fast forward 20 years, and here we are in Oklahoma, where it's not just one little prayer by a student. We're talking a whole course called Missionaries taught by missionaries in the public school. So really great question, and I think at this point in time, when we start to see really flagrant violations like that, it is absolutely necessary to hold them personally responsible, because otherwise I don't know how else we're going to get the message across that it's unconstitutional. So I will talk to you in the next segment of Legal Tuesdays.